This last motion, I would instruct the conference committee, would move to instruct the conference committee on HB1 to include in the conference committee report on HB1 language from Article 9, Section 3.13, hiring freeze, House engrossed version, House floor amendments 228, 229, and 230, without change to the substance of that section. And if you recall, members, in HB1, we voted in what I would call a soft hiring freeze. In fact, Mr. Gutierrez helped me construct that language, and we adopted an amendment to the amendment that he prepared. And it simply says that if an agency has a vacancy occur, they can fill it, but only if they determine internally that it is a necessary for the core functions of their agency. In other words, that it's very important to their agency. And then they simply have to notify, not get permission from, but notify the members of the LBB and the governor's office that they have declared that an essential position and go ahead and fund it. And we did that, and then it would sweep back any monies. We did that to ensure that monies that were allocated for a position were only used for a position rather than being used for other purposes. And there was one agency that came up that had actually 300 openings that they were intentionally not filling, and they were living off that. And so this made sure that monies went at where the legislature had directed them, and then those monies would be swept back into the general revenue at the end of the next biennium.
Mr. Speaker, will the gentleman yield?
Scheme to yield? Certainly yield.
Phil, in Senate Bill 653, when we combined the Youth Commission and the Juvenile Probation Commission, we created a totally new organization which goes into effect December 1st. Under your motion, are they going to be required to take every one of those positions when we're combining those and require them to go get permission for them to hire any of those people that would be in that new agency?
There's no permission required. If it is a budgeted position that is filled and that budgeted position becomes vacant during the next biennium, they will have to send a notice, not permission, but a notice to the LBB and the governor's office stating that they have determined this position.
But you understand when we're doing that is we're actually combining agencies and putting people in new positions or positions within that new agency. I just want to make sure that your amendment shouldn't even require them to go make some sort of notice when we're in fact just moving organizational.
And it would only occur if a vacancy occurs in a budgeted position, and a position that's been filled, and then a vacancy occurs during the biennium. Then they would have to, in Mr. Gutierrez's words that he placed in here, they would have to determine that filling the position remains critically related to the agency's ability to perform its core functions.
Representative Sheffield raises a point of order. Gentleman's time expired. Point of order.
Thank you, Member.
Mr. State. Chair recognizes Representative Hartnett to speak in opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, normally, as a conservative, I like what we're talking about, but I just really think we all need to think long and hard about every one of these motions. These all have huge consequences. We have strict time limits on what we can discuss on the floor. So we are casting major votes without discussion or debate or understanding what they are. I'll tell you, an immediate concern that comes to my mind is this disaster that we're seeing at our driver's license offices, where our constituents are having to sit in lines for 5 hours. People are driving, I know, from Dallas out into the country to avoid lines. I don't know what impact this has, but I tell you, we've got to hire more people to take care of our constituents in those situations. It may be that's going to be taken care of in our budget. but I can't vote for something that is going to leave the current situation the way it is, because it is, we're going to see a crescendo of angry constituents if we don't solve this driver's license situation. So I might agree with it, but in the absence of information, I think the best thing is leave it to the discretion of the conferees. I urge you to vote no.
Question occurs on the adoption of the question occurs on the adoption of the motion instruct by Representative King. For what purpose, Mr. Keffer?
Parliament inquiry.
State your inquiry.
I just want to make sure, we've done through this many times before on budget debate as we're going into the conference period, and I think I was asking some of my colleagues, because I was not here in the beginning, on this instruction is to give a pathway, is to give the idea, or probably stronger than that word, but anyway, as we go forward to the House conferees of what the will of the House, the thought of the House is, but it is not a binding, per se, issue here, that they still have the latitude to do what they feel is best for the House, and then come back when the product is finished to come back and explain their positions to the House and why they voted to do something or not to do something. And I want to make sure, and as far as going outside the bounds or something like that, that's not an issue here. I mean, they still have the latitude to do what they feel is best for the House, the state, or whatever. Is that what I'm understanding?
These are non-binding expressions of the will of the House, non-binding on the conferees.
That's okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. Solomon, for what purpose?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
State your inquiry.
Are we limited in asking questions now of anyone that has testified or spoken for or against the particular amendment?
There's a 3-minute time limit, pro and con, on each side.
So if we want to agree with Mr. Hartnett that for many of us in our districts have a problem in connection with the driver's license issue and about how we're going to resolve that, if DPS needs more people, we don't have a chance to expand on that. Because I got to tell you, in Carrollton, Texas, I got a big problem with not being able to resolve that issue. And if this amendment is going to keep DPS from adequately being able to process driver's licenses, then it's a big deal to me personally.